أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صدق الله العظيم. Respected listeners, Allah Ta'ala has blessed me and you with the opening passage of the Quran and has termed that passage of the Quran in other parts of the Quran as Sab'am min al-Masani. So Surah Fatiha is the only surah in the whole Quran which Allah Ta'ala Himself speaks about in the Quran. There's no other surah in the Quran that Allah Ta'ala speaks about directly in the Quran. So Allah Ta'ala speaks about Surah Fatiha in the Quran and gives it a special name. He goes, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِ وَالْقُرْآنَ الْعَظِيمِ. So that wow, wal-Qur'an al-Azim, we're not sure what that wow could be. That wow could be wow tafsiriyah. Wow tafsiriyah means wow of explanation, which could basically mean that we have given you the 7 very often repeated ayat, which is al-Qur'an al-Azim. So wow could mean and wow could also be which, i.e. in other words, it means al-Quran, which means that Allah Ta'ala has also termed Surah Fatiha as Quran al-Azim, not the whole Quran, but the great recital. The Quran means the recital, the great recitation. Quran, don't forget, sometimes when we think of Quran, we think of 114 chapters, Fatiha ila Nas. But Quran itself sometimes is used in its literal form as the immense and the noble and the sublime supreme recital. So respected listeners, it's always important to try to understand what is Allah Ta'ala telling us and what are we telling Allah Ta'ala in Surah Fatiha. One thing is Surah Fatiha, we understood from yesterday that Surah Fatiha is a piece of information. At the same time, it's a dua. So it's an emotional statement and at the same time it's an informative statement. However, half of Surah Fatiha, from Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, 4 ayat of Surah Fatiha, there is no talab in there. You're not asking for anything. But it's still a dua. Like the dua that we read in the morning when we wake up. Alhamdulillahi alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana wa ilayhi nushur. You're not asking for anything there, but it's still a dua. The dua of Arafah, which is known to be the greatest dua that any Nabi has read before, just talking about the greatness of Allah. The dua that we read when we enter the car, Subhanalladhi sakhkhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. There's no talab. So sometimes we've thought dua is only asking Allah for something. No. Dua doesn't mean su'al. Su'al means asking. Dua doesn't mean talab. Talab means seeking. Dua means calling Allah. Now let's look. When we call our parents, we're not always calling them to ask them for something. Sometimes we're just calling them to share our situation. Or maybe we're living in this country and our family is in another country. We're not calling our family members to ask them for help or ask them for this job or that job. No. Sometimes we're just calling them to share with them or to acknowledge them or to communicate with them. And sometimes, majority of the time, maybe it's this. Majority of our calling each other isn't necessarily asking each other. But what we do by communicating with our friends and our families, by calling them, by doing dua to them, not the dua of Quran or Allah, we emotionally pacify ourselves. Because by unloading, we have emotionally pacified ourselves. And who greater to unload on than the strongest of the strong? The one who can never be overburdened. The one that will never say, okay, I need to go. You can keep on unloading, and keep on unloading. And yes, that load may still be there, but guess who's sharing it with you? That's the difference. majority of the time when we have these counseling calls from people, we're not really giving them answers. We're just listening and letting them unload.
Yes.
At the end of it, they still have that problem. But emotionally, they've told themselves that somebody else knows. Not only me. Somebody else has shared this burden with me. So my respected brothers and elders, Allah Ta'ala has highlighted this to be a form of shirk. Not going and asking people, that's not true. But the fact that our mind is not turning to Allah. Because that's what ilah means. Ilah means alaha ya'lihu or aliha ya'lahu, means where our mind and heart turns in the state of distress. In the state of distress, where does our focus go? The Quran says a lot of the time, because إِذَا رَكِبُوا فِي الْفُلْكِ دَعَوُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ فَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ إِذَا هُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. Because when they board the ship and the waves and the storm gets very shaky, as in the ahwal, the situation, the circumstance gets very shaky, دَعَوُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. Only call Allah, they say, only Allah, you can do it for me, you can fix it for me. But when Allah Ta'ala takes a shaky situation and anchors it and slightly comforts it, فَإِذَا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ وَفَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ, takes them onto dry land, إِذَا هُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ, then suddenly it's not Allah anymore. So look, I am not saying this is shirk, what we are doing, but there are levels of shirk as well. And Tawheed means focusing on Allah Ta'ala. And if Allah Ta'ala was being greedy by this, by the way, then it would be, okay, it's only for Allah. But it's actually better for the human, mine and your psyche, to focus on one. And that one being the one who's always going to listen to you. Because, for example, let's say you pick up the phone to share your situation with somebody, which is fine. Allah Ta'ala has asked us to do that. But if we're only doing that and not making dua, then that's probably thinking, okay, I don't really need Allah. We're not saying it in our words, but our actions are voluming this. It's like, how would you feel as a parent? As the father of the child who's brought that son, that daughter up, took him to school and brought them back from school and all those clothes and all that food and all that accommodation. And in your face, your son and your daughter feels like he doesn't need you anymore. And maybe not calling somebody else dad, maybe not with their mouth calling somebody else dad, but basically doing everything, asking somebody else for everything dad used to do, everything mom used to do. Mothers feel it a lot. Mothers feel it a lot. My respected listeners, nobody's more arham, more loving, more caring, more considerate, more regarding than Allah Ta'ala. So one thing I wanted to mention here, subhanAllah, I learned this yesterday with my friends when I was talking about Surah Fatiha, because we do daily Quran dars together. So one thing we learned is in Ibn Kathir, when he says, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. So ihdi, hidayah, in the Quran or in the Arabic language sometimes comes with ila. For example, innaka la tahdi man ahbabt, or it goes yahdi ila siratin mustaqim, ila, word ila. And sometimes yahdi comes from, or hada yahdi comes with lam, just lam. For example, we say alhamdulillahi alladhi hadana lihada. So sometimes it's ila and sometimes it's li, whatever. Sometimes it's nothing. For example, in this situation, ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, there's nothing, there's no ila, there's no lam, it's just direct. So the question, what does hidayah mean? What does ihdi mean when we ask Allah Ta'ala to give us hidayah? I'm not translating it yet. Let's try to understand what it means. Is it just, oh Allah, guide us? Because guidance or showing us the way is irshad. Irshad, to show us the right path. But if Allah Ta'ala wanted us to just say that, then we should have said, urshudni, show us. But hidayah is a broader meaning. Hidayah doesn't only mean from irshad, it also comes from something called tawfiq. So
make us do.
Enable us.
Enable us to do.
Because sometimes we know what's right. We know where it is.
Yes.
So we don't really need to be shown it. We don't need to be taken to it.
Yes.
It's just giving us the courage sometimes to step up. So next time, sometimes we'll find there are some things we want to say, or some things we want to do, or something we want to start. We don't have that.
Yes.
That, that courage and that leap of faith. So next time when we read Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, bear that in mind. It's basically saying, Oh Allah, Allahumma waffiqni. Oh Allah, enable me. Enable me to do the right thing. The Sirat al-Mustaqim is the right thing. The straight path. Enable me. So let's not think. So look, the translation of a surah is very difficult to translate. Because you'll always not be doing it justice. So for example, Alhamdulillah, we won't be able to say all praise, it belongs to Allah. It'd be better to say all praise and all gratitude belongs to Allah. Because we know praise and gratitude is different. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, it wouldn't do justice to say, guide us upon the straight path. We should also say, guide us and enable us to take the straight path. Because sometimes we know where the straight path is. We know what to do. But what's missing? What's missing? Is that's next step. It could be our courage. It could be the fear of circumstances. So many things. And wallahi, let's pacify ourselves with Surah Fatiha. And ulama, of course, occasions are different, but at least have 2 rak'ah in the day. When we try to do tadabbur of the qasamtu salata bayni wa bayna abdi. So my ustad used to say, goes, try to make sure you do waqf between every ayah of Surah Fatiha especially. Although you don't have to do waqf. Because if you look at the surah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman, Nir-Rahim. It's not Ar-Rahman, Nur-Rahim. Because if it was a beginning sentence, it would have been Ar-Rahman, Nur-Rahim. Because that's how sentences start. They always start with Dhamma, Pesh. The default in Arabic is Dhamma. But the fact that it said Ar-Rahmani, it shows it's linking back to Lillahi. Alhamdulillahi. So, reality is that this ayah is in the middle of a sentence. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman, Nir-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. So it's actually the same sentence. But it's 3 ayat. It's the same sentence, same subject still being discussed. But it's 3 ayat. Okay. So although it's the same sentence, we can read it in one go all the way to Deen. Which is fine. But for the sake of the tadabbur, at least have maybe 1 rak'ah in our day, or rak'atayn in our day, 2 units of prayer in a day, where we say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and think Allah is responding and saying, my servant has done hamd of me. Which is, he has praised me and thanked me. And subhanAllah, for many years I used to think, okay, if Allah said Hamidani Abdi, and the next ayah, when you say Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, he says, Asna alayya Abdi. So normally in the English it's translated, my servant has praised me, and Asna alayya Abdi, my servant has praised me. For so long we didn't understand, I didn't understand, what's the difference? But now we know, but hamd is broader than praise. And when you do hamd of somebody, or when you do hamd, it can mean thanking someone and also praising someone. Asna is more to do with praising, an elaborate version of praise. And what more of elaboration and eloquence than using the most beautiful names of Allah Ta'ala. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So my respected brothers and elders, we've just spoke about Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim today. But that's the only part of the surah that we do talab, by the way. It's the only part of the surah that we do talab. The rest of it, we're praising Allah and highlighting what we want, what we don't want. But the only part we ask Allah for something is hidayah. That's the most important need of our life. To stay on the straight path. to get onto the straight path, to know the straight path, to be on the straight path but not be able to perpetrate it. So we need the courage, the tawfiq, the ability. So respected listeners, all I want from these get-togethers that we have to is that maybe we can take away something that we can put in practice. Next time we think of ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, and next time we say Ameen, let's think, what are we saying Ameen for? Think, just take your time. Especially in Nawafil, you have all the time. Nobody's in Fara'id for the Imam is told to make sure it's, something accommodated for the whole gathering. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, I used to wish I could lengthen my salah. He used to love salah so much. He used to say to Bilal radiallahu anh, Arihna ya Bilal. Oh Bilal, give us some comfort by saying the azan. As soon as you say the azan, it's like, when somebody had a long day, they come home and they put the football game on. So Rasulullah's version of that was, Arihna ya Bilal. Day's been very hard, somebody's arguing, somebody's fighting, somebody's this. Need to talk to Allah. Arihna ya Bilal. So my respected brothers and elders. So he would say, I wish I could lengthen my salah, but I would hear a baby cry and I'd be considerate of the mother. I'd be considerate. One last point I'll make is, subhanAllah, how did Bani Israel end up in Egypt? Because Bani Israel originated from Sham, Canaan, Syria, Lebanon, that area. Israel, Jerusalem, Palestine. How did they end up in Egypt? Because we know the story of Musa alayhi salam was all to do with Egypt. How did they end up in Egypt? Yusuf alayhi salam. And in Surah Al-Ghafir, we have this where it goes, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ يُوسُفُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. There's a part of the Quran where that رَجُلٌ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ, that man from the family of Fir'aun or the people of Fir'aun starts speaking up. أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّي اللَّهِ. Are you going to kill somebody just because he said, my Rabb is Allah? Subhanallah, Abu Bakr repeated that with the Quraysh. Anyhow, so they ended up in Egypt via Yusuf alayhi salam's journey there. So Yusuf alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam's story has a very unique comparison. Many comparisons. We could go to a whole day of study about the comparison between Yusuf alayhi salam's story and Musa alayhi salam's story. So, in Musa alayhi salam's story, he had siblings as well. He had Harun alayhi salam and he had his sister. And Yusuf alayhi salam had siblings as well. But the difference is Musa alayhi salam's siblings were supportive, and Yusuf alayhi salam's siblings were kind of opposing. Now, in Yusuf alayhi salam's story, which parent is involved? The father. In Musa alayhi salam's story, which parent is involved? The mother. Okay. The mother.
Yes.
The mother. Now, Allah separated the mother and the son. But for how long? Maybe a few hours, maybe a day. And then reunited them. And even when he was separating them, he promised her, Inna raduhu ilayki. You're going to get him back, don't worry. But with the father and the son, it was different. Not denying the pain of the father. And it was so painful for Yaqub alayhi salam that he lost his eyesight. But look at the shafqah and how Allah Ta'ala has highlighted the emotional state of the two. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam considered that inside his salah as well. Look how much links we can make between the Sunnah, the Quran, the different stories, the beauty of Islam. May Allah Ta'ala bless me and you to develop a connection with Allah Ta'ala in this moment.